Before Mr. Carney goes to China, a pit stop to chat about pipelines. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The answers you need
from the people in the know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
The Prime Minister has a long day ahead of him. Mark Carney is starting his day in Prince Rupert, British Columbia. He's scheduled to meet with coastal First Nations about energy projects to the West Coast, something coastal First Nations is against. Carney has a tough sell in front of him, since opposition to a pipeline was made clear when chiefs from across Canada gathered in Ottawa late last year. Merle Alexander is a hereditary chief in BC. He's also one of the top lawyers in the country practicing Indigenous resource law.
The possibility of a catastrophic oil pipeline like burst would destroy the very livelihood of the Central Coast. I also think it's important to remember that Trudeau had a grand bargain of balance where he chose to approve the Trans Mountain pipeline, but then put in place the Oil Moratorium Act and rejected the Northern Gateway project. This MOU, if implemented, would completely reverse that balance, as well as amend a number of, create exceptions for another 7 other environmental provisions, including issues around cap emissions. So this is really a step backwards, and it obviously the possibilities of a catastrophic event would completely destroy and eliminate the very Aboriginal and treaty rights that are protected currently.
Marilyn Slett is part of the executive team at Coastal First Nations. She has said in the past the group doesn't support pipelines, will never support pipelines, and doesn't support any changes to the West Coast tanker ban either.
We, along with the province, call on the federal government to uphold the North Coast tanker ban, and we will not back down on this declaration. We are not interested in being equity partners in a project that has the potential to destroy everything that we have built. We have never supported oil pipelines. They are not a part of our vision for a healthy, sustainable, and economically diverse North Coast. We want to get back to building on our successful track record of working with the federal government and the provincial government on projects that protect our environment, deliver jobs, and support the livelihoods of thousands of residents on the North Coast.
There are some who think the need for another pipeline from Alberta to the West Coast has become more urgent since Trump's move on Venezuela. I could see Venezuelan oil eventually compete with oil from Alberta. Among those saying that are the Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, who has called on the Prime Minister to approve a pipeline right now. After that meeting, Prime Minister Carney is off to Vancouver and will board a plane to Beijing, China. He will be there for days of high-level meetings with tariffs looming large. China has imposed tariffs on many Canadian exports to that country, including canola oil, canola meal, and peas. There are also tariffs on Canadian pork and several types of seafood. China imposed those tariffs after the Trudeau government moved in step with the former Biden administration and slapped a 100% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles. Ontario Premier Doug Ford is among those hoping the Prime Minister keeps those tariffs on those made-in-China EVs, unless Chinese companies commit to opening auto plants in Ontario and hiring unionized auto workers.
The only compromise I would have is if they open up here, they hire Unifor employees, and they produce vehicles here. We have the best auto workers in the entire world. That's the compromise. Come here and look at the market. And maybe it will hold other automakers accountable, the U.S. automakers accountable when they're shipping vehicles up here.
Any deal that would ease those tariffs on Chinese-made EVs would please some and disappoint others. Lana Payne is the president of Unifor, the union representing auto workers in Canada. She has said Chinese vehicles must be kept out of Canada for the sake of our industry and to protect the billions invested in the Canadian EV supply chain.
China is currently producing lithium ion batteries and dominating global production of battery parts and precursor materials. While China continues to pump out cells and cathodes and anodes, other battery plant investments, including some in Canada, are facing delays as EV demand slows. Canada must ensure that these lucrative job-creating battery factories get up and running. Unifor wants to see similar action under Section 53, targeting Chinese batteries, critical minerals, and other components that are key to Canada's EV transition.
But Saskatchewan's Premier Scott Moe, who will travel with the Prime Minister to China, sees things a different way. He says the tariffs on Canadian canola exports are damaging an industry worth billions more to the Canadian economy than Ontario's auto sector.
The Canadian canola industry is about $43 to $45 billion each and every year. That is responsible, that industry, for over 200,000 jobs, Canadian jobs, and with China accounting for about a third of our exports, the United States of America would be about 40% of said exports. They total about $5 billion. China's exports total about $5 billion annually, much of that coming from our province of Saskatchewan. To put this in context, this $43 to $45 billion canola industry, the Canadian canola industry that we have, employing just over 200,000 people, that is significantly larger than the steel industry, the aluminum industry, and the car manufacturing industry combined.
What's not clear is how the Trump administration would react to Canada lowering or dropping tariffs on Chinese-made EVs. The United States still has steep tariffs in place on those vehicles, not just the vehicles, but also on batteries, battery parts, and the critical minerals needed in the manufacturing process. President Trump is in the American automotive heartland today with an event scheduled in Detroit. Following Prime Minister Carney's multi-day trip to China, Mr. Carney will travel to Qatar and then make a stop at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow
Returns on News Radio.
Well, he's with us every Tuesday, no matter where he is in the world. He's still in Miami, Florida today, where it's 22 degrees, but I'm told it's raining. He's offering his hot take on the news of the day. Professor Ian Lee is with the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Rob, and you are very accurate about the weather. It is something here in Miami. I didn't know it did that. It was raining. I didn't think it did that. I thought it was this sunny all the time like California. It has been sunny all the time, 25 centigrade. It's very lovely.
Don't
very
rub
lovely.
it in. Don't rub it in. Don't rub it in. I hope you have somebody who plows your driveway while you're away from your Ottawa residence. So, that's good. Because,
I do. And I'm hiring workers, and I even have a couple of students shoveling the walkway separately from the driveway. So, no, I'm all looked after.
You will be greeted by narrow downtown Ottawa streets and high snowbanks when you finally do decide to return to the Great White North. But let's talk about Prime Minister Carney. He's going to China, a country you have been to many times over many decades, and he will have meetings at the highest levels with Chinese leadership. There is some reporting there could be movement on the EV tariff issue. What do you see as the main goals for the Prime Minister's trip to China?
I accept his comments that he is trying to reset the relationship, which experienced such great damage under the Trudeau administration. That's not an unfair comment. We weren't even talking to each other for about a year and a half. So that he is going to reset the relationship. This is, and I do support that, by the way. I know there are I've read some serious op-eds by some conservatives saying, look, don't do a deal with China at all. I'm not of that school. I'm not of the other school that says we can't deal with the United States. I think that's equally foolish. We need a balanced approach. I'm very Kissingerian, and I really mean that. I'm not Kissinger, let's be clear. He was a brilliant, famous, most brilliant geopolitical strategist of the last 100 years. But he was the one that convinced Richard Nixon, who was a diehard anti-communist, to recognize what they used to call Red China, because the United States had no diplomatic relations with them whatsoever, none. And so he convinced, and he won the Nobel Prize, by the way, for that. He convinced Richard Nixon to recognize China. He didn't stop dealing with Canada. He didn't stop dealing with the Europeans. So we need a more balanced approach. It's not going to be a full trade agreement, Rob, because there are areas that are still very, very sensitive. And so as a consequence, we can't export anything military, anything high tech, but there's an awful lot there's great demand. And I've actually looked up the stats just before coming on with you. Our oil exports have gone up very dramatically since the completion of the pipeline through the Rocky Mountains to Vancouver. They want our oil, they want our LNG, they want our agricultural products. So there's a market there for non-sensitive products. And of course, we've got the big blockage is that we've got this 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. And as Premier Smith of Alberta put it, I just thought she put it so succinctly, we have 100% tax on EVs coming into Canada to protect the non-existent EV industry in Ontario. That's exactly the point. That is the reality. We don't have an EV industry. We are not going to have one for those who think we're going to, because Trump has already said, you, Canada, are not going to be allowed to export cars any longer to the U.S. that are tariff-free. So we should recognize that reality, and I hope that he says, look, we'll take off that tariff on Chinese EVs, which are very, very price competitive, by the way, probably will come to market in the low 20s so that the average Canadian can buy one. And in exchange, we get them to take off all of those tariffs on seafood from the Maritimes and on agricultural products from Western Canada. So I see a quid pro quo emerging, the basis of a deal emerging that will be of mutual self-interest and will not.
Okay, Doug Ford won't like that. Unifor won't like that. And Donald Trump might not like that. What do you think about that? What if it angers the Americans at a time when we're trying to get a trade deal with a much more important trading partner, our neighbor right next door?
I think that what you just raised is much more important than Unifor, and I'm not trivializing Unifor. I'm not trivializing Premier Doug Ford, but the reality is, and I've said this before, and I'm writing a paper on this, the reality is that I believe that our auto manufacturing, not auto parts, auto manufacturing is finished if we accept President Trump, who said you will no longer be allowed to export cars to the United States tariff-free. If that, in fact, is the case, and we're going to discover that imminently when we start negotiating a new CUSMA, and I think he's going to be a man of his word. He said this for 20-odd years. And so what that means is that's the end of the auto manufacturing industry in Canada. So whether we like it or not, whether the Unifor likes it or Premier Ford likes it, that is the reality we're facing. The much more important question, and you just raised it, is what is the reaction of the Americans?
Okay, we'll pick up on that when we come back with Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University with us every Tuesday here on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Back with Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. You mentioned this just prior to our break, Professor. The trick for Mark Carney is, I gather, trying to lower the temperature with the Chinese leadership and not raise the temperature with the White House and with the Trump administration. Not an easy thing to do, I suspect. What do you think?
You're absolutely right. I think, we hope, I mean, maybe it's more hope on my part than reality, but that he can square the circle. And I mean by that, he's got to, that famous, make me an offer I can't refuse, that great line from a Hollywood movie. He's got to make an offer and look at what's in the U.S. self-interest. Kissinger famously said, nations don't have friends, they have interests. And so he's got to figure out what are the American interests. Well, they want our potash. We know that. Well, they want our oil, at least for now. They certainly want our critical minerals. He has been very, very clear about that. No, I don't believe that conspiracy theory of the hysterical that he's going to invade Canada to get those. They've been buying our resources for over 100 years. The U.S. is a capitalist economy. They have no problem paying market price. And we have some things they want. Now, the sticking point may be the cars, because, of course, Trump wants the U.S. to be the producer of cars for North America. And so, we may have to, fudge there and say, okay, yes, we'll take the tariff off Chinese vehicles up to, I'm just going to name a number, up to 50,000, because I don't think the United States makes EVs in the 20 or 30 or 40,000 range. And so that might be the compromise. But I think that we can come to a deal that is mutually beneficial, and which we will promise to be their first supplier of choice. For example, on potash, for example, on radium, the fuel for nuclear reactors, for critical minerals, because the Americans want that. And as long as they understand that we are still a loyal partner of the United States, which clearly is Trump is looking for from every country that's allied with the United States, I do think that we can come to a deal. Those Canadians who are saying, no, we want to go to war with Donald Trump, I think are very, very foolish. In any war, they are the hegemon. They are the most powerful nation on earth, as they're demonstrating day after day after day. This is not about lying down on the floor and saying stomp all over us. It's about finding areas of mutual self-interest. And that's what trade is all about. That's what Kissinger always argued. You got to find interests that are common to the two countries. We can do it with the United States. It's going to be tough, but I think we can do it.
We only have about 90 seconds left. I would like your reaction to the story of the Trump administration trying to hit the U.S. Fed chair with a criminal indictment. It hasn't really moved markets very much, but certainly central bankers are none too pleased.
Yes.
Neither are people within the Trump administration, according to some reports, like the Treasury Secretary, for example, who comes from Wall Street. But why is that upsetting?
It is upsetting, and I think I think it's a huge mistake. So I'm not somebody who always, celebrates. In fact, I'm a big critic of Trump on a whole bunch of things. But this one is a huge mistake. One of the rock-hard competitive or comparative advantages of the United States is the fact that they do have such a strong financial system, that the Federal Reserve, the central bank, is independent of politicians, which is so common in developing countries with a lot of corruption, that the central bank is under, the sway and the influence of corrupt political leaders. So I think that this is going to hurt the brand, hurt the reputation of the United States. Yes, it's so powerful, and probably in the short run it won't matter, but I don't think that this is in the Trump administration self-interest, because I don't think it's in the U.S. self-interest. And that's why the Secretary of Treasury, whom I do respect enormously, Scott Bessent, is so critical and letting it be known he does not agree with his own boss, President Trump.
Okay. Happy travels back whenever you're coming back and actually getting back to work. Good to hear from you again today. We will speak soon,
speak to you, Rob.
Professor. Yeah, in Miami again today, Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School at Carleton University. We'll talk Canadian politics, talk about Mr. Carney's trip to China, and other things coming up on our Newsday panel next on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
It's time for the Tuesday Newsday political panel with Tim Powers, Chair of Summa Strategies. Welcome back, Tim Powers.
Good to be with you, Rob. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. Alex Chreston is Vice President at Crestview Strategies in Toronto, where he's celebrating the red-hot Toronto Maple Leafs finally making it back into a playoff spot. How are you, Alex Chreston?
This is our year, so I'm always great.
It's always your year. Been your year since 1967. Yeah, always. There's always next year, too. All right, let's jump right into this. Later today, Prime Minister Carney travels to China for days of high-level meetings with the Chinese leadership. Tim Powers, what do you see as the goals for the trip?
Great question, Rob, because I'm not sure if there are specific wins that will come out of this. I mean, Scott Moe is going with the Prime Minister. Of course, he's the Premier of Saskatchewan, and he's looking for some tariff respite. We're looking for some of that, as you know, in Atlantic Canada, because the Chinese tariffs are also but they're significantly hurting our fishery. So is there some tariff relief? I think in the short term, that may be viewed as a success, but it's a complicated tap dance with the Chinese. Always has been. That's not about to change, and it's more pressing. We have some kind of functional and effective economic relationship with the Chinese, given what's happening with the Americans. But not all of that's going to happen in one trip. So if they come back with some form of tariff relief for Saskatchewan, but they don't do anything on Chinese EVs, which may be difficult to do, that could be seen as positive.
Okay. Alex, what do you see as the goals for this trip to China for Prime Minister Carney?
It's all about leverage and results. So what the Prime Minister so far has not been able to achieve in the first year here has been real results. We don't have a deal with the Americans, but it would have been nice going into China with the leverage of a deal with the U.S. But maybe he's thinking that we might be able to get some kind of a deal with China to help leverage our deal with the Americans. That said, the balancing act of being the Prime Minister of Canada and balancing all of the different regional interests that he has is sometimes an impossible game. He's going with Scott Moe. Obviously, canola is going to be a huge issue. But are the Chinese going to give on canola without giving on electric vehicles? And does a give on electric vehicles end up alienating or hurting the Prime Minister in Ontario? It is always a kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't when you're dealing with regional interests of trade.
Yeah. Well, I would add, Alex, and I'd like to know what you think about this. Not just Ontario, but what about Washington and the man in Washington? What would he think if Canada became, say, a landing point for made-in-China electric cars?
Yeah, it's an issue that's going to impact the North American auto industry. And that's both on the industrial side, but also on the political side that the Prime Minister needs to be considering on the labor side, where I don't think he has. He's again tried to walk a fine line on labor issues here, and does he risk alienating the auto workers? Here? Yeah. Yeah. And what does it mean for investments that have already been made? Major investments in battery factories in Ontario, unless China is somehow buying products from there.
I mean, Tanya McCharles, the Ottawa bureau chief for the Toronto Stars, it reported today Canadian negotiators are in active discussions with China about lowering or dropping tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles in exchange for easing punitive Chinese counter tariffs on Canadian canola and seafood. But it's like, what other dominoes fall if Canada lowers or drops tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles? It would be great for, as you say, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba. All three premiers have said, have to do something, Prime Minister, about those canola tariffs. You mentioned seafood tariffs, lobster, crab, shrimp, multi-billion-dollar market for those products in China for Atlantic Canadian seafood processors. So they would be happy. But what about Doug Ford? What about Lana Payne? And what about Donald Trump? It's not easy.
Well, don't forget Lana Payne's also from Atlantic Canada. So yes, but sure, her first job, of course, is to care about autos. But look, it's hard, as Alex knows and as you know, to look at these as one-off transactions with the Chinese. If the Chinese are anything, they're extremely skillful. So they know the political challenges of dropping the tariffs on electric vehicles. But guess what? They're also interested in, which also presents security challenges. They're interested in oil. They're interested in critical minerals. They're interested in technology. So there isn't one suite one particular trade-off that may do the trick, and that is the challenge with China. Like, where do you find the grand bargain or a series of little bargains that also put us in a place where our national security isn't jeopardized? I mean, it wasn't all that long ago, Rob, we were talking about Huawei and not letting them in Canada. I'm sure the Chinese haven't forgotten that, and they're still looking at technology options. So I no doubt all of that is on the table. And the other part of this equation are consumers. Consumers do like to pay less for products, and as much as we hate to admit it, they like to have the access to Chinese products. So how does the Prime Minister balance all of that?
Okay, we'll be right back. We'll talk about our domestic affairs. Where does this political horse race stand right now? Just a few weeks removed from the resumption of the House of Commons. Is it really a dead heat? Or is it advantage to the Liberals? Still, I'm Rob Snow. It's our Tuesday Newsday political panel on News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Here with Alex Chreston from Crestview Strategies and from Summa Strategies, Tim Powers, talking politics on a Tuesday. The resumption of the House of Commons still about 2 weeks away. Alex, how would you describe the horse race right now? Dead heat, advantage Liberals, what would you say?
I think it's an interesting question because I think the horse race is probably about where it's been for the last, since the election. That it is probably, something close to a dead heat, but I would also say that it doesn't matter at all. The horse race at this point, the Prime Minister and the Liberals have are so close to a majority here that they can functionally govern as if they have a majority, and very realistically, if you believe rumors about floor crossing, will have a majority, within a few months. So does it really matter at all? Basically, I think we're looking at, regardless of the horse race, no race at all.
No race at all. You sound like you're nodding in agreement there, Tim Powers.
Oh, no, just for spite, let's Alex and I have a violent disagreement. I think Alex is right, okay. But there is one place where it does matter. This is where I would have a slight disagreement with Alex, and that is for Poilievre right now. It's still important with this leadership review coming that he's, I would suggest you going to pass bar some strange happenings before it. It's important for him to say, look, and the party to say, look, we're still high in the polls. We still have support out there, and yeah, we lost and all of that, but people are still with us. He needs it as a reference point. Alex is right to talk about the mechanics. That may change all of that, but for Pierre Poilievre right now, it's a useful data point. But whenever an election comes, what is happening in the polls now will have very little bearing on that when we go to the electorate, and hopefully that's not this year, Rob.
I don't think it'll be this year. No, I don't think so. But Pierre Poilievre, nice segue, is spending his day in southwestern Nova Scotia. He's going to have a rally later today in Yarmouth.
I wonder why.
That's the riding where Chris D'Entremont crossed the floor to the Liberals. He's also visiting a neighboring riding that was once held by Rick Perkins. He lost the riding to the Liberals, St. Margaret's. Now, some say that was because the NDP didn't run a candidate. What's going on there, Alex? What's the purpose of, it's basically a day of rallying the troops and campaigning in southwestern Nova Scotia, where all the ridings are held by the Liberals. Well, what's going on there?
Yeah, I think if there's any part of the country where you can say that people are certainly, where Pierre Poilievre certainly has had issues, and where we could say that the party, may need to shore up their support, Nova Scotia is it. If we see any part of the population that is really if we have to identify one area where people are saying, well, maybe we don't like this guy's style, and if given all of the floor crossing issues, I think this is certainly an effort to remind people that there are supporters for the Conservative Party in Nova Scotia, and I think we'll probably see good numbers out at a Poilievre rally because it does still draw a crowd, and that will help to hopefully for him stem any kind of bleeding that's happening there.
Tim Powers?
It's also about this leadership review vote, right? In the convention, you go to ridings you used to hold, or ridings where you still have strong constituent associations. He needs people to show up in Calgary and vote for him. Atlantic Canadians will make the trek, particularly the committed ones. He was just in Newfoundland not that long ago doing the same thing. And in BC, so much of it is, Rob, about the end of January and the vote for now, and laying some track for whenever a future election comes.
Okay. When we come back, Tim is from Newfoundland and Labrador, not invaded
Nobody
yet by Donald Trump. No indication of that, that Donald Trump has his sights set on the rock, but don't rule anything out. So we'll ask Tim. I mean, 2025 was certainly a big year in politics in your part of the country, at a provincial election and a change in government. Alex is from Toronto, where there will be the big municipal election later this year. We'll talk about some of the big political stories to watch in Newfoundland and Labrador and in the city of Toronto when we return. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Here with Tim Powers, Chair of Summa Strategies, Alex Chreston, Vice President, Crestview Strategies. Tuesday, Newsday, political panel. So Tim is from Newfoundland and Labrador. Alex is from Toronto. 2025, big year in Newfoundland and Labrador politics, provincial election, change in government, PCs take power. What's the big political story to watch for this year on the rock, Tim Powers?
What they're going to do. So that was a surprise win by Tony Wakeham. They ran a very good campaign. They got the win when they weren't expected to do. What are they going to do with provincial finances? I mean, Newfoundland and Labrador, like many of the other Atlantic provinces, our finances are always in a precarious state. Oil, fish still matter to us. So China and the like, how that all plays out. Wakeham has a one-seat majority. Does that change over the course of the year? I do have to tell you, Rob, though, very quickly, because we want to make sure Alex gets in on the Toronto municipal campaign. You were talking about Donald Trump. Two fun facts that your audience may not know. When Newfoundland was looking at joining Canada in 1948, prior to joining in 1949, one of the options was to join the United States. So if Trump hears that, he might get interested. Point two, in 1941, during the Second World War, the Americans traded some bases with the Brits in Newfoundland because they saw us as Greenland, a strategic opportunity. But you, the Grand Orange, you keep your hands off Newfoundland and Labrador, buddy.
The Grand Orange. So Joey Smallwood could have been the governor of the 51st state.
Well, fun fact: the 1948 push to join with U.S. To join with the United States Economic Union with the U.S. was led by John Crosby, the late John Crosby's father, Chess. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
And of course, John was with Mulroney, brought in free trade. So it's a family affair.
So in Toronto, I mean, the big political story to watch has to be the municipal election and how that's going to play out. Yes, Alex?
Yeah, municipal election this October. I think it's shaping up to be, one of the most sort of speculated upon political stories coming out of last year and going into this year. I know, having worked in municipal politics, it is something that people in my circles bring up pretty regularly. So I think I'll say this. The speculation is likely to continue unabated of who may be running, who may not be running, and if the mayor seeks re-election, if she doesn't, and if the former mayor comes back into the race.
Is there any indication, because Doug Ford loves to stick his nose into Toronto municipal affairs, is there any indication that Doug Ford is like backing a horse in that race right now? Do you have a favorite
Certainly
candidate?
not at this point. Not at this point. The premier and the mayor, despite him, campaigning against her in the by-election a couple of years ago, they've gotten along really well, and they both always say glowing things about each other whenever they get the opportunity. So I think from a working perspective, they've found that that in most cases, the Premier of Ontario and the Mayor of Toronto can't help but make each other look good because their interests are so intertwined. But let's see what happens. But no, so far, Doug Ford has not stuck his neck out in favor of any opponents.
Okay. I would say one more just to watch in that part of the country. Does anybody want to lead the Ontario Liberal Party? Please raise your hand if you would like that job. They're in no rush to find a replacement for Bonnie Crombie, it would seem. Look, that's our time. Thanks to everyone. Tim and Alex, great to hear from you. All the best. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Rob Snow. Talkback is coming up. We're going to talk about China, closer ties to China. The Prime Minister traveling to China later today. Does anybody want to buy a made-in-China electric vehicle? What about those tariffs? What if they disappeared? It's all ahead on Talkback. 1-833-668-2577. Taking your calls right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It is 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic, closer ties with China. Here are a couple of questions for you to get the conversation started today. Do you support or are you opposed to Canada having closer ties with China? Do you support or are you opposed to Canada having closer ties with China? And do you think it would be a good idea or a bad idea for Canada to lower or drop the tariffs that it has on Chinese-made EVs, electric vehicles? What would you say? What do you think? Our phone lines are open right now at 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. This is going to be one of the bigger stories of the week in Canadian news. Canada's relationship with China, because Prime Minister Carney is leaving for that country later today, and he is going to be meeting with the highest levels of leadership there. And as we all know, this is a relationship that has, not been going well in recent years. And this trip by Mr. Carney to China, with the world's second largest economy, is seen as an attempt to reset and improve that relationship. Of course, part of the backdrop for all of this is what's happening in the United States with the Trump administration and tariffs and other geopolitical events like what's been happening in Venezuela, what has been said by the Trump administration about Greenland, the need to diversify our trade, find new markets for Canadian exports, become less reliant on the United States. And the most obvious candidate for much of this trade diversification is China, a massive and fast-growing economy. One of the irritants, of course, is tariffs. China has all sorts of tariffs on Canadian agriculture and seafood products, canola, peas, pork, lobster, crab, shrimp. Tariffs that were put in place after the Canadian government under Mr. Trudeau followed the lead of the former Biden administration and imposed a 100% tariff on EVs made in China. So there are quite A few ways we can look at this, I suppose. We want to know how you're looking at it. Again, 1-833-668-2577. One way to look at it is China's a country with a massive market and a massive appetite for raw materials. And we are a country with lots of raw materials. China needs coal. China needs oil. China needs natural gas. China needs lumber. China needs everything Canada has in abundance. It's also a massive market for a lot of our agricultural products. 30% of our canola goes to China, according to Scott Moe. It's worth tens of billions of dollars a year to the Canadian economy. Seafood, pork exports to China worth billions more. And this trade dispute between the two countries is putting a lot of that product at risk. And the sooner it's settled, the better. The Chinese government is not happy that we followed the lead of the United States and effectively shut out Chinese-made EVs from our market with that 100% tariff on those vehicles. There are those who support those tariffs on those vehicles and think they should remain in place. They say China doesn't play by the rules, heavily subsidizes the manufacturing of those vehicles. It doesn't have the same standards, labor standards, environmental standards. And that's why those Chinese companies can sell those cars at a huge discount to their Western rivals. And if those vehicles are allowed to be sold in this country, it puts the entire future of our auto industry in jeopardy. Big Auto Workers Union doesn't want those cars in this country. Ontario Premier Doug Ford doesn't want those tariffs lifted either, all because they say it's not a level playing field. On the other side are Western premiers like Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, like Wab Kinew, the NDP Premier in Manitoba, and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, who have expressed a desire to see the end of those tariffs on those EVs so there could be relief for hard-hit Western Canadian farmers. Another issue at play as well is how China behaves. On the world stage, one-party dictatorship, authoritarian, represses its people. No human rights, no freedom of expression, no free media, controls all major channels of information, censors the internet with its great firewall, partakes in hostage diplomacy, just ask the two Michaels, oppresses religious and ethnic minorities, like Tibetans, like Uyghurs, hundreds of thousands thrown in prisons and labor camps, stripped citizens in Hong Kong of their civil rights when it took over Hong Kong, views Taiwan as part of its territory, always concerns about an invasion, runs intimidation campaigns against Canadians of Chinese descent, interferes in elections, spies on our government, spies on our companies, has no respect for intellectual property, and steals trade secrets, and on and on and on. Not a very nice country. And for that reason, there are those who feel we should not have closer ties with China, and we shouldn't play nice with China, and we shouldn't let those EVs into this country. Others, like Professor Ian Lee did in the previous hour, say, don't fall for that. Don't get wrapped up in ideals or ideologies and think, what is in Canada's best interest? What is in our interest now? Pivoting away from the United States, finding other places to sell Canadian goods. It's a country with almost 1.5 billion people, a GDP of almost $20 trillion, second largest in the world. It can't be ignored because of how you feel about the country. What's more important is what's in Canada's interest now, with the United States behaving the way it is. It's a big issue. It's an important trip for the Prime Minister. There hasn't been an official visit by a Canadian Prime Minister since Mr. Trudeau went there in 2017. And people see real opportunities. Should we have closer ties, though, to a country that ignores basic human rights? Should we have closer ties with China? Should we drop or lower the tariffs on those EVs? What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, mention that. We'll make you a priority today. Let's talk about getting closer to China. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is Talkback on News Radio.
something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The Prime Minister's trip to China. Prime Minister Carney leaving for China later today. Do you think Canada should have closer ties to China? Do you think Canada should lower or drop tariffs on Chinese-made EVs? There's reporting that it's under negotiation. Or up for negotiation. 1-833-668-2577. There are lots of lines available there. It's a very important topic that we have to discuss with you today. Tim is in Nova Scotia. Let's get started here on Talkback. Hi, Tim.
Hi. I'm absolutely flabbergasted that anybody would be in favor of this. We're basically operating with the LCC, Liberal Communist Party of China. The past two prime ministers have been notably pro-China. Trudeau admires their basic dictatorship, and then who's to say that this wasn't all a part of Mark Carney's plan? He's stalled, refused to negotiate. Who cares? Because he's been on record saying what he thinks about China's economy and how favorable he is towards it. And now they want to with all the, you made so many good points with the election interference, with infiltrating our country, we do not, why would we want closer ties with an actual dictatorship? They repressed their people, they've locked people up, as far as I'm aware, during COVID. Lots of people burned in buildings because they couldn't get out. It's a tyrannical government that we should not be trying to have closer ties with. If anything, we should.
Okay, what about? Well, the counter argument would be, look at what is happening in the United States, and look at the economic opportunity presented by a massive economy and a massive market like China. What about that?
Okay, but
the almighty dollar, jobs, economic growth, economic diversification. That's the counter.
Okay, do you remember when Germany came looking for our LNG and Trudeau wouldn't continue with the LNG plants? We've had so many products and so many opportunities out there that should have already been taken advantage of. We should already be diversified. We don't, so what? Carney didn't make a deal like he claimed he was going to do, and you won't change my mind to think this isn't all part of a greater plan because he borrows money from them. Wasn't it that Michael Ma or the Ma guy, wasn't he the one that the bounty was on? Or am I mixing up to the MPs?
No, I don't believe Michael Ma had a bounty. It was a candidate in another riding, I believe, who was running against a Liberal candidate, and a Liberal candidate said, by the way, if you want to turn in my political opponent, there's a bounty on his head.
Directed,
yes.
They're known, as far as I know, they've been putting political pressure on Canadian citizens that have families over there. This
yes,
is not,
they do.
We don't want closer ties.
Don't want closer ties. Sure thing, because of the behavior of the country. It's a very valid point that you're making. What would you think if we dropped the tariffs on the EVs? That's their big demand right now in China.
Well, as far as I was concerned, I know it was the market and plus the potential spyware that they were worried about that was going to come in with these vehicles. It wasn't just cut and dry that, okay, it's going to interfere with the auto industry. And I think if you're pro this, you're
there are concerns as well, national security concerns about data collection, surveillance of critical infrastructure. Yeah, remote kill switches, all sorts of things. Yeah.
Anyways, like I said, you made a lot of good points, a lot of ones I was going to bring up in your, et cetera.
Right.
I'm going to leave
and on and on and on. Yeah. Okay. No, you make a very valid point. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your call. I can't believe nobody wants to talk about this today. Well, everybody's okay with it. There is some reporting in the news media that there could be some movement on the made in China EV issue, which is really the big issue between the two countries, with a big headline in the Toronto Star today. Carney government in talks with China about EV tariffs. Carney government in talks with China about EV tariffs. I can walk you through that story and take more of your calls when we come back. I'm Rob Snow. What do you think? Closer ties with China, our topic of the day. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Should Canada have closer ties with China? Should Canada lower or drop the tariffs on Chinese-made EVs? 1-833-668-2577 to Mark is in Calgary today on Talkback. What do you think, Mark?
Hi, Rob. I'm glad you are well. Well, I'm kind of interested that first caller saying that the Chinese are so tyrannical. Well, you could kind of change the direction there. Well, isn't Trump kind of tyrannical right now with his objectives on just taking over Greenland and other countries? They're quite numerous by his cause. And I think that on the Canadian perspective, we really need to, because he basically is just more or less dismantling the Canadian automobile sources. And we have no other objective but to go to the Chinese. And you scratch my back, I scratch yours. They're willing to take our products, and we're willing to take their Chinese cars, because the auto industry has basically just had it, thanks to Trump.
What about the record, though, of that government? The way it oppresses its own people, the way it censors the internet, the way it treats religious and ethnic minorities, the way it uses hostage diplomacy. Should we just ignore all of this in pursuit of jobs and economic opportunity abroad?
Yeah, that's more or less. That's their territory. This is ours. What goes on there? That's my perspective. We're in a situation where we can't say, okay, well, no, they're oppressing. Is Trump oppressing? Like he's oppressing us. The Chinese open their arms and say, well, look.
All right. Okay. So again, you come back to this realpolitik kind of point of view that Professor Ian Lee outlined on our show earlier today. It's not about how that country runs its own affairs or this country runs its own. It's what's in our best interest. There are no friends, no enemies. There are only interests and what's in our best interest right now. And you're of the opinion, well, pivoting to China because of Trump is in our best interest right now. And that's fair enough, if that's your opinion. Thank you for sharing it. Let's go to Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. Eric is in Cole Harbour. Hi, Eric.
Hey. Rob, you get an A+ for me today, because the reasons why we shouldn't have anything to do with China, you categorize those perfectly in my view. Your last caller there, and I'm sure he's a good guy, but the world is going to remain in a mess if we have entities like China and Iran, where there's oppression, like you mentioned. So I'm not going to get in a big rant about that. But are you going to benefit yourself off the backs of other people? I don't think there will be any peace in the world, right? And, I'm not going to speak about Trump today, but I'd rather live in a free market society. And I'll give you an example of something just before I close here. You look at, you know who Larry Fink is, right?
Remind me, Larry Fink.
He runs BlackRock.
BlackRock. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now, as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the most evil people in the world. Now, I'll refer you to the Financial Times. I think it was 3 months ago, or maybe just at the beginning of last year. He said that in order for the elites to control the world, and he used the term "we," he said, we have to have an authoritarian, totalitarian system, because the free market system doesn't work. And this guy is worth trillions and trillions of dollars. He has more to say about what's going on in the world.
Right. But you think because of the way China behaves on the world stage, the way China treats its own citizens, that it's wrong that we have closer ties with a country like that? Yeah, there's a real division of opinion here today on Talkback. Should Canada have closer ties with China? Lower or drop the tariffs on made in China EVs? How do you think the Trump administration would react to that? Donald Trump is in Detroit today, touring a Ford factory in Detroit. Do you think he'd be happy with made in China EVs in Canada?
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Should Canada have closer ties with China? Prime Minister Carney is going to China later today. He'll be there a few days. Should Canada lower or drop the tariffs that it has on Chinese-made EVs? 1-833-668-2577. There's reporting in the news media. There could be some movement on made in China EVs. That's the big issue. Tonda McCharles reporting in the Star today, Toronto Star. Headline: Carney government in talks with China about EV tariffs. Quote, Canadian negotiators are in active discussions with China about lowering or dropping tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles in exchange for easing punitive Chinese counter tariffs on Canadian canola and seafood. The talks are considered so politically sensitive as the United States and Canada navigate the upcoming negotiation to renew the North American Free Trade Pact. The Canadian officials would say very little about the tariff dispute that is jamming Ottawa between China and the United States and is open to double trade war for this country. There has been a concerted effort to address trade irritants systematically with the objective of making progress over time. This is not our one chance to fix all the irritants, but we do expect to make progress, according to an anonymous government official. But it's on the table up for negotiations. The thing is, if those tariffs are lowered on those vehicles or dropped altogether, a lot of other shoes are going to drop. 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Al in Nova Scotia. Hi, Al. Thanks for calling, Al. You're on there. What's your opinion here? Very good. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we should definitely make better ties with China, what's going on in the world currently. I mean, everyone that's speaking about the tyrannical government in China and how oppressive they are, I'm sure every single person that's called the show is speaking on a phone that's made in China. They're probably walking in shoes that are made in China. Their pants and their shirt and underwear are probably all made in China. The chair they're sitting on is probably made in China. So if you want to pick and choose moral values, you kind of got to stick to your guns, in my opinion.
Okay.
So
what about? Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
If you don't want to support the Chinese market, then don't support it. But you can't pick and choose. Say EVs are not good, but how is the pen you're holding in your hand, or your cell phone, or your television? How are they okay products and certain products aren't? I guess that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point. You look around the house, how many of our products are made in China, right?
Probably 85 to 90%.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and not supporting the U.S. government in the last couple of years. What Trump has started is in itself hard to do for certain products, like fresh foods are hard to stick to non-American products. You can do it, but it's harder to a point. But if you think you don't want to support a government because it's oppressive, especially to their own people, then I value that opinion. But then don't just do that and then talk a bit outside your face and use all Chinese products at the other end.
Right. Go buy a new TV that's made in China. Fair enough. What about those EVs, the tariffs on those EVs? There's a lot, like, for example, Ontario Premier Doug Ford is against that. The auto workers are against. I don't know how the Trump administration would react. I wouldn't imagine they'd be too pleased if we allowed those vehicles into this country.
No, they definitely wouldn't be pleased. But I think it's no matter. It's a business transaction. If it works well economically for Canada, I think we should do it. as a nation, not as one industry. I know it would hurt the auto industry 100%, but I mean, what other industries may it help? Then if you get a cheaper EV, then
will
you
it
might
help the
be able
fishery
to
in your
afford
part of the country, for example?
Yeah.
Would help canola farmers in Saskatchewan and Alberta.
Yeah, but if they lift those tariffs in response, you're right, it would help all these industries. Plus, even the people in Ontario, if they're getting a cheaper car, they can afford to buy more furniture, they can afford to buy more products and other things. So it is going to help the economy in certain ways, for sure.
All right, Al. Yeah, you make interesting points. Let's see if people agree or disagree with that. But Rick in Calgary today, thanks for calling, Rick. You're on the air. What do you think about having closer ties with China? Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
I'm going to say this first before I give an answer. Whatever happened to those Chinese police stations or headquarters that were found in Toronto? Were they not deemed to be fake?
What do you mean
what
fake?
I'm getting at is they weren't legit. It seemed to be all over the news that there was some corruption going on there, and that they shouldn't have been part of what was going on in a true and just police system. So I just don't know if Chinese can be trusted, and why Mark Carney's going over there, and it doesn't seem to be discussed about what those stations represented, who put them there, and I don't know, to go and do a free trade, can they be trusted? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about freer trade, but I would say, or even free trade. The Trudeau government thought it would be well and good to have a free trade deal with China. I don't get the sense that that's on the table here right now. This right now is more of a tariff issue. Dropping or lowering the tariffs on the EVs in exchange for dropping or lowering the tariffs on our agricultural and other food products. Worth billions, tens of billions of dollars to Canadian producers. That market.
Depend on no tariffs. I get that, but do we want to do business with people that are corrupt like that? But that's my comment. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you, Rick. Thank you. 1-833-668-2577 to have your say on what will be one of the Prime Minister's most important trips of the year, even though it's very early in the year, this trip to Beijing. He leaves Vancouver later today to head to China. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now. Hello. 1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Should Canada have closer ties with China? What about her lowering or dropping the tariffs on made-in-China electric vehicles? Have your say on Talkback. Brian in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. Hello, Brian. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Rob. How are you? Hello, how are you?
Yeah, very good, Brian. Good. Thank you. What's your opinion, Brian?
Well, as you know, I am totally off grid, and I have been waiting for these tariffs to come off the EVs.
Okay. Why is that? Why is it?
Well, because right now I'm living pretty much carbon neutral, and I'd love to get an EV, but they're way too out of price. And China has the BYD automotive EVs, which are phenomenal, and the prices are well within range for the average person. And it would make such a huge difference. It's like if they want us to go carbon neutral, go green, and carbon tax and so forth, just give us the opportunity to have a decently priced EV.
Interesting. So you'd be interested in actually buying one?
Oh, hands down. Like I told you in the past, like we're off grid, we're on solar. I burn dead standing trees for heat. My one thing I'm missing is an EV, and I would be carbon neutral. I'm not an environmentalist by any means, but I'd love to be able to have a vehicle that I charge from my own power. It would be awesome.
Sure thing. Okay. There have been concerns expressed in the past. I mean, for example, what would that mean for, what does that mean for an auto worker in Oshawa or an auto worker in Windsor if you favor, a made in China EV? Not just that, but they don't have the same labor standards. They don't have the same, environment standards that we have in this country. They're not even allowed to join a union in China. And then there are all kinds of other concerns. What about the computers in that made in China car? What are they collecting about you, Brian? What kind of data is it collecting on Canadians or Canadian society? They've been called rolling spy machines. Doesn't any of that concern you?
Well, they're probably going to collect the same data that they're collecting right now on the phone that I'm using.
Right.
To be honest.
They're
right?
collecting the data one way or another, you would say.
Yeah. So everybody has this phone in their back pocket, so they're already got a rolling survey on you wherever you go.
Okay.
And that last caller had a good point.
For you see this as an opportunity to buy a quality EV at a competitive price, a price you can afford. That would help you, as you say, have this more sustainable lifestyle that you've been pursuing.
Oh, it would be amazing. When I heard that little news clip that they're talking about tariffs, it's that would be amazing. It would be the one opportunity that I can get past. Because the only reason they put the tariffs on, in my belief, or what I've read in the news, is because the Americans did. So they just follow suit to keep them happy, I believe.
Yeah, and it was about protecting jobs in the auto sector in the United States and here, plus all the other national security concerns that I cited. Brian, thank you for your call. No qualms whatsoever. Hopes they drop the tariffs. Wants to buy one of those cars. Jason in Alberta. I believe it's Morinville, Alberta. Hello, Jason.
Hello.
Hi, Jason.
I'm a first-time caller, just to let you know. I've been listening in a little bit on your show today, and I would just keep my statement very plain and simple, though there's lots I could say. There's going to be a bullseye, simply put, on Canada if they continue getting cozy with groups that, for example, Trump and his administration don't like.
In other words, getting closer to China would make Canada a target for even further anger, retaliation, action from the Trump administration? You're concerned about that?
Well, you've got a precedent set already with the Venezuela boat capture. That was a Chinese boat. So, what's to stop Trump, for example, from stopping any one of our shipments from China if he suspects something going on there? In a perfect utopic world, of course, we all want to be friendly with as many as we feasibly can. But in light of the way the world is currently, no, I don't think it's wise, among all the other things you've already mentioned about the track record of China's practices. We can do better. I believe Canada can do better.
All right, Jason, thank you for your call. He's worried about blowback, retaliation, if you will, from the Trump administration in the United States if Canada pursues closer ties with China. What about you? 1-833-668-2577 and have your say on Talkback today here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now. Hello. 1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Should Canada have closer ties with China? Lower or drop the tariffs on Chinese-made EVs? Your thoughts, please. Linda in southern Alberta today. Hello, Linda.
Hello.
Hi, Linda. What's your opinion?
Well, my answer is no. For all the reasons you said and all the past actions that China has done, and I think we can mend our fences easier with the United States, because Trump's not going to be there forever, but the Chinese government is permanent. So, and their attitude and behavior towards democracy in the West has always been negative. So I would say no.
You would say no. Okay. Thank you, Linda. In southern Alberta, Compeer, Alberta, Rob is up next. What's your opinion, Rob?
Hello. Hello.
Hi, Rob. What do you think?
Well, I don't know why we got to send Carney over there. Why we in this world of modern man, we tweak, twixt, and text, and yet we got to send somebody over there and cost us millions of dollars for meals and everything else or whatever. Why can't he just phone them up and say your tariffs off the canola and everything else, and tell them tell them to drop that, and tell them the tariffs off the EV vehicles and let them come in. Maybe if we got somebody else's vehicles in here, we'd have a little competition, and these other vehicles wouldn't be $100,000 and some $1,000, just like that fella said. They'd be able to afford the damn things, or maybe if they build something. But yeah, so I don't know. There's varying ways to look at it, but I don't think we got to send somebody over there to waste our time. Why can't he just text them and tell them, oh, you know, we're dropping tariffs on you guys, so drop yours.
Okay. You don't like the cost of what it's going to cost to send everybody there.
Yeah, every time we turn around, we're getting pissed on. Yes,
sure.
You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
All right. Okay. All right, Rob. Thank you. Not really at the heart of the question today. Let's do it all by Zoom or whatever. But I appreciate the point. Cheryl in Halifax. I think we'll take Cheryl's call here. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Rob. I say
Hi,
open
Cheryl.
up the doors to. Hi, it's like a big chessboard, Rob. Like, you know what? The king, if we lose it, you know, we're done. But if we pivot to China and just say, you know, bring in the EV cars, I think our manufacturing days are done here anyway. I think if we can make some parts, maybe for some Chinese vehicles or, you know, but U.S. is going to make us pay. You realize that if we do this. But what choice do we have?
That was one of the previous callers' concerns, Jason, saying, well, what's the blowback going to be from the Trump administration? Are we painting a big bullseye on Canada here by cozying up to China, having closer ties with China? Is that something you're concerned about?
Well, you know what? We're our enemy, but you know what? There's nothing worse than a best friend that goes against you. You know what? I can befriend with an enemy to stick it to the former best friend. And I think, you know what? It's like you move one chess piece on a chessboard, everything changes. And I mean, this is a very complex issue. Canada is very diverse and challenging, but I think canola trumps, manufacturing in our country.
Okay. Yeah. Canola. And in your part of the country, seafood, billions of dollars worth of seafood.
Yeah,
Subjected
absolutely. I
to
don't
these
want to forget
tariffs
the seafood.
from
Yeah,
China.
and I think
okay.
we have to make it work with China, but I don't know, U.S. might come gunning for us. We got to be prepared, right?
Yeah, it's a minefield. Thank you. That's it for hour number 1 of Talkback, but we have all the lines freed now. So we'll do a reset on the topic, reintroduce it again, and lots of time to take your calls. Full hour ahead on the topic, having closer ties with China. And potentially dropping or lowering those tariffs on made-in-China electric vehicles. 1-833-668-2577. More of your calls, I hope, after the news here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
The Prime Minister's trip to China. That's our topic today. Mark Carney goes to China. Leaves later today. They're spending the day in British Columbia. Do you think Canada should have closer ties to China? Do you think Canada should lower or drop the tariffs it has on Chinese-made EVs? Many news reports that is up for negotiation. I mentioned the story in the Toronto Star today. Bloomberg is also reporting that. Quote, China will propose easing some restrictions on Canadian rapeseed products during a visit to the country by Prime Minister Mark Carney, provided his government relaxes tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. The Chinese authorities plan to discuss the proposal with the Prime Minister on his official visit this week, according to people familiar with the matter who asked not to be identified. 1-833-668-2577. It's hour number 2 of Talkback. Welcome to it. There are 4 lines available. The wait will not be long at all, and we welcome your opinion. Let's go to Kitchener today. Greg is there. Hi, Greg. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I'm okay with it all, Rob. I think we need a plan B. Mr. Trump has already said he needs nothing from Canada. Canada has nothing that the Americans need. He wants to shut down our auto manufacturing industry. He's said that numerous times. And your experts that you bring on every once in a while, which I really enjoy, have said that Canada better get used to the idea that we're not going to manufacture cars anymore. So I think he's opened the ball field to do whatever we want. He's doing what's best for his country. We need to do what's best for ours. So if China's willing to buy the stuff that we make, I think we should sell it.
Okay.
And if
what about, again, just the behavior of the Chinese government? Does that concern you?
I would say not all Americans, Canadians behave really well either. I'm sure the Chinese can come up with lots
Well,
of examples.
I'm not talking about Chinese people. I'm talking about the government.
Yeah, well, I get it. But what are we supposed to do? Just sit here with our twiddle our thumbs and let the U.S. take us over? We missed the boat on selling gas to Europe. We won't build a pipeline to get our oil out of the country. What are we supposed to do here? I would probably buy BYD. The North American auto manufacturers can sell an affordable EV, but they won't because there's not enough profit in it. So they're just holding us to higher costs.
Okay. Thank you. We need a plan B. Greg says 1-833-668-2577. I mentioned if it comes to pass, I don't know if there's going to be some kind of announcement to this effect later this week when this meeting wraps up on Friday. But if those tariffs were to be lowered or even dropped altogether, I said a lot of other shoes would drop. For example, Unifor is not going to be happy with that. The big auto workers union. You had the energy and papers workers union and the old CAW that all merged, became the mega union, Unifor. It has said in no uncertain terms, we should not allow those vehicles into this country. Death blow, potential death blow to the Canadian auto industry. And it would put at risk all the money, and a lot of it is our money, everyone, taxpayer money. You think of it, I mean, $53 billion poured into the EV battery supply chain in this country. This would be a threat to all of that. Unifor essentially accuses China of unfair trade practices, the way it underwrites its EV industry, dumps these vehicles all over the world in a bid to dominate this industry all over the world. Ontario Premier Doug Ford would not be happy. He has been very open and vocal. He wants those tariffs to remain in place, again, because he wants to protect the auto industry in Ontario, which is still, despite the threats facing that industry, is still the most important manufacturing industry in Ontario. Hundreds of companies, not just the big manufacturers with the assembly lines, but the whole supply chain, employing anywhere between 100 and 150,000 people in Ontario. The last thing Doug Ford wants to see is the Canadian auto industry getting hammered because Ontario's streets are flooded with less expensive made-in-China electric vehicles. And, of course, one of the big questions would be, what would the reaction be from the Trump administration? What if Canada, right next door, Canada becomes a landing zone for electric vehicles made in China? Trump has kept those Biden-era tariffs on those vehicles in place, and then he added a whole bunch of new tariffs. Not just on the finished product, but on the batteries, on the components, on the critical elements that are involved in making these cars in the first place. What would Trump's reaction be if the Canadian government lowered or dropped those tariffs? Do you really think he'd be happy with Canada and motivated to make a deal with Canada? People, I think, appreciate the Carney government's desire to have, as the caller said, Greg, a pivot away from the United States to find new markets for Canadian products. But what if that angers further the Trump administration in the process? One of the questions is that really worth it? I'm glad I don't have to make these decisions. Lots of time to take your calls and lots of phone lines available on having closer ties with China. 1-833-668-2577. Please share your opinion. Today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We are asking today about closer ties with China, whether Canada should have closer ties with China, with the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, about to leave for China, and whether Canada should lower or drop the tariffs on Chinese-made EVs. I mentioned today that U.S. President Donald Trump is in Detroit. He's been touring a Ford factory near Dearborn, Michigan. And he made some comments about CUSMA, USMCA, NAFTA, whatever you want to call it these days. He said it's not relevant to the United States, but Canada wants it. Quote, there's no real advantage to it. It's irrelevant. Canada would love it. Canada wants it. They need it. The problem is we don't need their product. You know, we don't need cars made in Canada. We don't need cars made in Mexico. We want to make them here. And that's what's happening. So that's another backdrop to everything that's going on as Mr. Carney departs for Beijing. Back to our phone lines. Luke is in Calgary. Hi, Luke.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Luke. What do you think?
I would say Trump is really just running this like it is a company. I think that's what taking over Venezuela is really all about. I think he needs all the materials that they have, not just, I don't think it's about the oil, if I'm being honest. I think it's about all the rare earths that are there. I think that's why he's after Greenland. I don't think, that we can do it the easy way or we can do it the hard way. I think, I don't see Trump dropping bombs on Greenland. I think he's a business guy. And I don't necessarily agree. I'm not saying that I agree with it. I just think that's what's happening. And I think that he's probably right. I don't think they need Canadian cars. I really don't. I think he's right. I think we need the NAFTA deal desperately. I think Canada needs the NAFTA deal. Yeah. This whole China thing, I don't know.
So what should that mean for Canada trying to have closer ties to China, or these reports that we're negotiating maybe lowering or dropping those tariffs on those EVs? What do you think about that?
That's a lot of questions, right? Yesterday, I think the correct question that we were asking yesterday, I think the correct question should have been, would you rather be American or would you rather be Chinese? Because I think that's the real question that we're going to be forced to make. I didn't like the 100% EV tariff on electric vehicles from China because it was proof that the Liberals were completely full of crap when it comes to the Green Initiative. If you want the Green Initiative and you want electric vehicles, then we want the cheapest vehicle we can get that people can afford so we can get in that direction. But to say no to it is proof that it's unions buying votes. That was my opinion anyways. I would be all for him taking down the tariffs on China if the goal is to go green, right? It's like I say, there's a lot of questions there. Do I want to be closer with socialism? Not really, no. But we have a liberal government that they're pretty socialist, or have been for at least the last 10 years. So it's hard to say.
All right, Luke, thank you for your call to Scott in Calgary as well today. Hi, Scott. What do you think,
Hey there,
Scott?
Rob.
Hi, Scott.
Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I've been listening to
You're
your
welcome.
show for quite a while now. First time calling in. I guess
Appreciate
I keep hearing about this, a flood of EV cars in the market. I mean, why is there not a flood right now? I mean, I'd be happy to buy an electric vehicle right now, but it's pretty hard to find one, under $50,000. But to your last caller's point, if we're looking to go green and actually looking to try to get more vehicles in here, I mean, you can't afford to buy them from a Ontario plant right now, right? And the costs just to manufacture vehicles are pretty outrageous. So if we want to go green, I definitely think we should be dropping those tariffs. If you look around your house, you're probably, at all the products you have in your house, there's probably 60 to 70% will flip it over and it'll say made in China. So I don't think we're really opening the market any further than we already have.
Okay, but what again? I circle back to this. What do you think the reaction would be from the Trump administration? If we did that?
Honestly, Rob.
Like if the United States and the Trump administration says, not only are we going to have a 100% tariff on the cars, we're going to have a 100% tariff on the batteries, the components, the critical minerals, all of it. We're tariffing that. We don't want them in our market. And all of a sudden, Canada right next door becomes a landing zone for these cars. How would Trump react to that, do you think?
Yeah, that's it's always hard to understand what he's going to do. I guess with all the stuff that's going on in the U.S. right now with Trump, Venezuela, Greenland, all the things going on, I think we should be concerned about Trump. But honestly, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to stay in his position for much more than a year from now. I think there's going to be enough backlash from the American people that he's not going to have the power that he's going to have. I think they're going to have to replace it. That's just kind of my thoughts on that.
Okay. Again, yeah, there are midterms in November as well. So we'll see what happens with those. Lots of lines available there. Lots of time to take your call. And no easy answers, are there? Should we have closer ties with China? $20 trillion economy worth tens of billions to many Canadian industries, agriculture, seafood, pork, all subject to tariffs right now, hurting producers from Atlantic Canada to the prairies. What if getting a deal done means we have to drop EV tariffs and maybe face further wrath from the Trump administration? What do you think about all of this, folks? 1-833-668-2577 and have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And we're talking about the Prime Minister's upcoming trip to China, trying to forge closer ties with China. Is that something Canada should be doing? What about these reports that Canada might lower or drop tariffs that it has on Chinese-made EVs, a 100% tariff on Chinese-made EVs, essentially, barring them from entering the Canadian market? What if we lowered that and in exchange, tariffs that the government of China has imposed on our industries like canola and peas and seafood and pork, they're lowered or dropped? And this is kind of the quid pro quo. What do you think of these? 1-833-668-2577 as we make our way through Talkback. Another call from Cambridge today. Jeff is in Cambridge. Hi, Jeff.
How are you doing, Rob?
Yeah, very good, Jeff. What's your opinion here, Jeff?
Sorry. China has a problem with their military jets, and that's the problem is nickel. The jets go to a certain speed. The nickel is a cheaper nickel. It breaks down. The engine breaks down. And they're after a higher grade nickel. And I think that's the reason why our Prime Minister went ahead with the Ring of Fire, because that's the high-quality nickel, and China wants it. So I'm kind of coming in the back door.
Okay. Well, they're mining lots of nickel already, in and around Sudbury, Voisey's Bay.
Yeah, well, I guess
as well.
It's got to be for the high quality, and I guess they know. I'm only speculating. I don't know what's in the Ring of Fire, so it's just kind of like that's my opinion.
Right, but I mean, you're in an area. You have a significant manufacturing base there with Toyota, right? That's the big automaker in Cambridge, right?
No problem. What if Toyota being here?
Chinese-made EVs were allowed in here, and what if that threatened, say, jobs at that Toyota plant in Cambridge?
It is what it is. It's the world keeps on spinning, and what more can you do? It's the lower cost of things, and right now. But then again, when you bring in a lower quality EV, and you're paying more than likely, by the time it actually you're driving it, you've already paid more than what you should have, because somebody else is getting their mitts on the money, sort of thing. I don't know. How long would an EV last from China? And the batteries, where are you going to get them?
Well, they're very popular.
Yeah, I know.
They're selling them all over the world.
They're very well made. But then again, how would they last in, I was going to say Canada, but I'm sure that they've lasted quite a long time out in other winters in other countries.
So just generally speaking, because you and I are both going to have to stop speaking soon, you're okay if we have closer ties with China, just generally speaking?
They're a different lifestyle, but we're all just human, and we all just got to get along with each other. I'm sure, like, if we got to know them a little bit better.
Yes. Sounds like a yes, but I've got to go. Thank you. All right. Thank you. In Cambridge today, Jeff, more of your calls after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've been talking about Prime Minister's pending trip to China. Prime Minister Carney's pending trip to China leaves later today. And whether Canada should have closer ties to China, and whether you think Canada should lower or drop the tariffs that it imposed under the Trudeau government on EVs made in China. There are reports that's up for consideration. We have, as a backdrop, of course, everything that's happening with the Trump administration and trade and tariffs and a 2026 review of our free trade deal with the United States and Mexico. I mentioned that U.S. President Donald Trump was at a Ford factory in Dearborn today. He did make some comments about our trading relationship with the United States, and I believe we can play that for you right now. Let's roll the tape on that. I haven't heard this yet. Go, Curtis, play that, please.
Negotiate USMCA. How is that going to help?
I don't even think about USMCA. I mean, I want to see Canada and Mexico do well, but the problem is we don't need their product. We don't need cars made in Canada. We don't need cars made in Mexico. We want to make them here. And that's what's happening. Everybody's moving here. From Canada, they're coming here. From Mexico, from Japan, from Germany, from all over the world, they're coming here. They're opening up their plants. Bill is lucky because he's had a lot here, but when he doesn't have it here, he's moving here. They're doing big expansions for it. But they're all doing great. The car industry is exciting, and to be honest with you, Bill, every industry is exciting. Yeah, just like this.
Well, we need to rebuild our industrial.
Okay, that's interesting. There are further quotes from a Reuters account where Donald Trump said there's no real advantage to it. Speaking of CUSMA or USMCA, there's no real advantage to it. It's irrelevant. Canada would love it. Canada wants it. Canada needs it. The problem is we don't need their product. We don't need cars made in Canada. We don't need cars in Mexico. We want to make them here, and that's what's happening. Just some new Remarks from U.S. President Donald Trump. Thus, the reason for this trip by our prime minister to China. A pivot, a diversification move. But is it the right thing to do? What do you think? Lee in Cambridge. Hi, Lee. You're up next,
Yes,
Lee.
hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Lee. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I'll be fast. I don't understand this process. Everybody knows that the Chinese have infiltrated our parliament, and we couldn't negotiate a trade deal with the U.S., but we can with China. Is that what's going on? Are we becoming friends with China so we can let China and be? We can't be the 51st state, but we can be the second state of China. Is that where we're going?
Well, we are seeking closer commercial ties, that's for sure. Or else the prime minister wouldn't be going there.
And I don't understand the Canadian people allowing this guy doing what he's doing. I mean, he's been placed by the Dominion machines, and he's been placed there for a reason, and he's not looking at our interest. And I'm not sure why the Canadian people are not putting a stop to this guy.
But you hear comments like that from the press. Well, we don't need anything Canada has. We don't need their cars. We don't need this. We need to diversify our trade. We need to find other opportunities for economic growth to sell our products abroad. And China's the second largest economy in the world with 1.5 billion people. Shouldn't we pursue those economic opportunities?
Well, yeah, and you think that Trump is going to allow the Chinese being in here? Are you serious? I don't think Trump is going to allow, because they kicked them out of Venezuela. They're kicking them out all over the world. They're now going into Greenland. Chinese are around there with their ships trying to get into Greenland. So we're not allowing U.S. to take Greenland, but we're allowing the Chinese to take.
Right. So you think we were just asking for trouble, Lee? Is that right?
We are.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your call. I want to take another one. Let's go to Matt in Calgary. Hi, Matt. You're up next. The previous caller thinks we're just asking for trouble. Matt, what do you think?
Hey, Rob. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you just fine. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Good. Yeah, I think, I don't know, man, like Trump's approach to tariffs, I don't really like it because I'm a big fan of history. And if you look back at history, like, for example, the Meiji Restoration there in Japan, what happened was the emperor there in Japan saw the big American ships coming into their ports in Yokohama around 1852, something like that. And the Japanese very quickly realized that they needed to sort of compete with the rest of the world, open up trade with everyone else, or they'd fall behind. And as soon as they opened up and started trading with the rest of the world, they became competitive. So I think it's necessary to get rid of the tariffs and trade with as many people as we can. And if the Chinese are out competing the United States, the best thing for North America to do is to learn what the Chinese are doing well and learn from them.
Okay. The government of China has not been very friendly to Canada. Well, with its trade policy and with a whole bunch of other policies.
Right. Yeah, no, I
agree.
agree.
Should we really be doing business or, more business with a country that behaves that way?
Well, we should. And
we should? Okay.
Yeah, because we need to diversify and trade with as many people as we can and make our workforce competitive and educated and compete with the rest of the world. So open for business, no tariffs.
Open for business. Open for business. Okay. I've also heard it said, and I thank you for your call. Look, if we don't sell oil or natural gas or metals and mining products, agricultural products, everything, they'll buy it from somebody else, so that we may as well sell it to them. They were getting oil from Venezuela, for example. They were getting oil from Iran. Well, what if we could, replace that with our own product? 1-833-668-2577. Have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On to having closer ties with China. As a pivot away from the United States and a trade diversification move. Orville, North Battleford. Thanks for calling, Orville. Good to hear from you again. What's your opinion?
Yes, thank you. Well, our country, it's very important for our country, Canada, to keep the door open for pretty well trading all over the world. With China, yes, it's, kind of a bit of a challenge, but somehow you have to keep that door open. Like, it's best to do business with no tariffs on both sides.
All right, Orville. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, Orville, your phone is just breaking up there, so I'm going to have to let you go there. We're not catching every word that you're saying. Tom is in Cambridge, Ontario. Tom, up next. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah,
you're the only guy that's
Tom?
talking about relevant issues. Okay, it's not about tariffs. It's about taking over the country, and they should get this through their head. This is how you're negotiating, or he's negotiating with us. And now that he took over Venezuela, we're not going to sell any gas. We're not going to do any pipelines because he's going to sell it at way cheaper than us. Secondly, it's not China's fault that they're doing the problem with us. It was us. We put that lady, Huawei lady, in jail for nothing, and they had to retaliate. Now, the auto industry and the steel industry.
No, that's not entirely accurate. If I could, that's not entirely accurate. She was wanted by the United States for violating sanctions with Iran. We have a treaty. We have a treaty with the United States. Are we just not supposed to abide by our treaty with the United States?
She landed in 8 other countries which had the same treaty, and nobody picked her up. They knew what was happening. Anyway, we're not doing any auto or anything, so let's not put the prairie provinces dead because they sell more canola, and then they sell all the other products to China, more than what we make here in Ontario. So we should do the deal right away. Now, we got all kinds of automobile companies that sell here, and so if China wants to sell a few, we're not going to be making anyway. Let's put a tariff, or let's put a limit and do the deal so we don't let these farmers that are supplying Canada to go under. And I fully agree with Mo. And what you heard, what Trump was saying today.
Sure. Yeah.
They don't need us.
Yeah.
And
okay.
it's only
okay. Well,
wait.
The cold hard reality. Thank you for your call. Is the United States right next door? China is not. The cold hard reality is that we're doing $500 billion worth of trade every year with the United States. We don't do anywhere close to that amount of trade with China. It's like 1/5 of that. And the Trump administration doesn't like the fact that these made in China EVs are already allowed in Mexico, pretty much tariff-free as it is, and that auto sales of these vehicles in Mexico by companies made by BYD are booming there. The Trump administration has said it views those vehicles as a threat to its auto industry, and that those vehicles pose a national security threat as well. That's something that Pierre Poilievre has raised. He's against these Chinese electric vehicles being sold in Canada, not only because of the impact it would have on our own domestic auto industry, but because of it may compromise national security in some way. They've been called rolling spies, data collection, location tracking, surveillance of critical infrastructure. All of those concerns amount to one more reason to keep these vehicles out of this country. Even claims they have a remote kill switch that could cause havoc with transportation systems in this country. Doug Ford has just weighed in. He had a news conference today where he was asked about these news reports that the Carney government is potentially going to negotiate away these tariffs on the Chinese-made EVs. Let's listen to the Ontario Premier here.
I'm very concerned, and so are my friends in Michigan concerned. When you have China coming in at a low cost of EVs, is concerning. We as everyone knows, those parts go back and forth between Ontario and Michigan 7-8 times and get assembled in Michigan or get assembled here in Ontario. And when you have the Chinese government wanting to dump cheap Chinese parts and cheap vehicles here, it cost the Canadian and American jobs. So I'm absolutely 100% dead against this. I have not talked to the Prime Minister. I will speak to him and tell him our concerns. And this is nothing against the folks in the canola business or soybean. We have a thriving soybean business here too. So it's not about them. I fully understand why Premier Moe is concerned. But he's protecting Saskatchewan, I'm protecting Ontario, the 500,000 jobs in the auto sector, that's what I'm focused on. And it works back and forth between Michigan and Ontario and many other states. So it would not be good for Ontario and Canada, and it sure the heck wouldn't be good for the US, and it wouldn't be good when it comes to negotiating with President Trump.
That was Ontario Premier Doug Ford today, asked to respond to these reports that our negotiators are in active discussions with China about lowering or dropping tariffs on the EVs, the Chinese-made EVs. Your thoughts on this, please? We have some time left to take your calls on Talkback on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On the potential of Canada having closer ties to China, Mariana being Calgary. What do you think about that?
Nice being here too. I think we need to be smart about Canada and what Canada needs. I think we should have open trade with China, but we have to be careful and to import from them what Canada needs. Sure, we have to be wise enough and not to put Canada at risk in terms of national security and AI. We need to be open as every country is looking for its own, and I think we need to do that too. But again, I think we should trade with the countries that benefit us and, of course, benefit them as well.
All right. Okay, Mariana, thank you. Very good. Angie in Calgary. We'll fit in as many as we can here. Angie.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for this opportunity.
Yes, you're welcome. What's your opinion?
My opinion is, who started all of this tariff issues? It was Mr. Trump. Our issue with the China car trading shipments, we Canadians have a choice. We have a choice whether we support China products or not. It's up to us. Open up the doorways because our farmers need support. Not just in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta. We grow agriculture everywhere. When we elected Mr. Carney, we were so negative. We used very harsh words against him, saying that he has business in U.S. and all that. And, he has also been betrayed by U.S. and the Trump administration. And yet Carney is working so hard for us Canadians. If one of us were in his shoes, what would we do? Seriously, look at what this man is doing. He's doing the best he can for Canada.
Okay.
Open up the trades. Yeah, the electrical vehicle,
Okay.
vehicles.
And it doesn't, just because Chinese made electric vehicles for sale here, it doesn't mean you have to buy one, right? Fair enough. Okay. I think we have got time for one more, Pat, but we only have about 60 seconds or so. So go ahead with your opinion. Launch right into it.
I think we should certainly pursue trade diversification strategies with as many countries as possible, but we have to understand that not all those countries are allies of Canada. And so we have to understand and go into these negotiations with eyes wide open, because we do not want to poke the bear. The bear is our neighbor, and we have to be mindful of that. And so do trade strategies, but fix our trading relationship with the U.S. first and foremost. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for all of your calls. Very thoughtful today. Great discussion. Brand new topic tomorrow and more of your calls. And always the latest breaking news on News Radio.